Good evening and welcome to the Triad News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amanda Crow.
And I'm Scott Hardesty. We have reporters in the crowd at the historic presidential inauguration.
And at the women's marches in Washington, D.C. and Greensboro in protest of the new president.
But first, let's check in with our weather person, Jason Wiley. Jason, what's the weather going to be like?
Hey, Scott, how you doing? Well, unfortunately, the gorgeous day of 67 degrees is coming to an end. We're going to be coming back down to the 50s and 40s later this week. And we're going to have the sunlight, though. You can see here we have some rain coming in, but that's going to hit more of the southern part of Florida and Georgia. And North Carolina, South Carolina should stay sunny. Amanda, Scott, back to you.
Thank you, Jason. As the president with the highest approval rate in history leaves office, and we usher in the president with one of the lowest, High Point professor Dr. Brandon Lenore arranged for students to witness the presidential inauguration in person.
And as you can see, High Point University Professor Brandon Lenore took the opportunity to travel with students to Washington to witness the presidential inauguration.
Students jammed into packed cars at 7:30 a.m. on Thursday morning and set off on their 5-hour journey to the Capitol. They made sure to leave early on Thursday to ensure a spot at the swearing-in ceremony of one of history's most controversial presidents.
Under the watchful cameras of the Fox 8 and WXII TV, they loaded bags, junk food, and stocked up on their playlists for the long trip. It was an educational trip of a lifetime for a historic event in the nation's capital.
Hundreds of thousands of people came from all across the globe to stand on the lawn of the U.S. Capitol to witness Donald J. Trump assume the office of President of the United States of America.
Joining us in the studio now is Triad News reporter Courtney Leopold, who was in the middle of that crowd. Did you hear everything Donald Trump was saying that day? How was it?
I only was able to see it on a screen, guys, so it was a little hard. I was 100 feet from the Capitol, but what was really cool was the atmosphere around me. I met people who were college students, and I met people who are my parents' age. So it was a really cool opportunity just to hear their voices and why they voted for him or why they didn't vote for him. There was people there who didn't vote for him, so it was very cool of an opportunity.
So what do you think those people that were there who didn't vote for him, what were they doing there?
There was a lot of reporters, actually. I met two really cool reporters who were explaining to me why they didn't vote for him, but why they understand people who did. And that was a really interesting conversation. And that was all over D.C. People who had voted for him, there was protests, there was a lot of riots, but at the same time, there was also people who didn't vote and were understanding. So it was a really interesting experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a really unique experience.
Yeah. The 45th president. This is a view many people in the crowd at Donald J. Trump's inauguration had Friday, 100 feet from the Capitol at best. Most people saw the president's remarks on a screen. Few had the opportunity to see him up close. People in the crowd could barely hear the president's remarks. The excitement within the crowd drowned out the new president, and the scars from his election were still very prevalent within the crowd. There are many boos and many cheers throughout the day. People of all shapes and sizes arrived in Washington from all across the United States for this monumental day in the nation's capital. Many in the crowd had views against the president.
His cabinet's terrible, he's terrible, I don't think he's going to do anything good. He's a multitude of conflicts of interest.
Feeling of Trump's future were prevalent within the crowd, which after many of the president's remarks remained unsettled. Even though the people could barely hear what they were, a lot of people within the crowd felt that they had been forgotten within the government, and now they came to cheer on their new champion for the next 4 years.
I'm happy. I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed.
That disappointment had by many showed up in 6 hours later and a 15-minute walk away from the inauguration at K Street in downtown Washington. Fires erupted and the riots became much more confrontational. The demonstrators had their flags raised upside down, a sign of distress, proving that the country's division will be a challenge for President Trump in the coming days.
What an amazing experience. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you. President Trump signed 3 presidential directives on Monday.
He withdrew U.S. support for a Pacific trade deal, imposed a hiring freeze in civilian agencies, and restored a policy that prohibits the U.S. from supporting international groups that offer information on abortion.
This decision, of course, follows the historic women's marches that took place all over the world.
Joining us in studio now is Joy Filippa, who traveled with Dr. Lenore's class to the inauguration. It was quite an experience to be in D.C. on that historic day, huh?
Yes, it was.
So Joy, tell me how close were you to the president's speech?
We were about 100 yards out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us about it. What was the experience like in the middle of that crowd?
It was extremely loud, significantly louder than I expected. I did not expect it to be to that decibel. It was crazy. There was so many people. We were like sardines.
I imagine like the personal space is kind of an issue.
Yes.
Well, what was it like being there? I mean, this is like a pretty historic moment. So, for Donald J. Trump, such a controversial president, did you see? Was it a little? Hear some tension in the audience?
Absolutely. Before it started, there was some picketers, and we had issues with umbrellas because umbrellas aren't allowed into the inauguration, and so we had to have the officers actually came forward and removed them.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, there were people that were picketing and yelling stuff as well.
Well, an amazing classroom experience, one you definitely don't get every day. So thank you, Joy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The inauguration wasn't the only reason people flocked to Washington this past weekend.
Some High Point students packed their bags for the 5-hour drive to Washington, D.C. to march in protest to President Trump's planned directives.
People from all over the country made pink hats, signed, and joined hands to demonstrate for women's rights. Cities and countries around the world held marches for women's rights this past weekend. A sea of pink descended upon our nation's capital. Mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends wore pink hats and marched to unite in the cause for women's rights.
Hundreds of thousands of people band together in D.C., and it was a peaceful protest of the policies that President Trump outlined in his campaign.
Participants hoped that our new president would hear their message. Triad News reporter Jason Wiley, who was in the middle of the crowd, is with us with the story. So, Jason, what was that like?
It was amazing. I mean, the marchers were shoulder to shoulder, voices raised, signs very high in the sky. A huge part of America came together, which was beautiful to see. Ever since Washington became the nation's capital, there have been protests of some sort. But even from the hardcore folks who live and work there, this was a demonstration like no other.
It's an experience few will ever forget, and it will definitely go down in history.
And now the question is still, will it make a difference on this administration?
We've seen demonstrations get violent in the past few years. What was this crowd like?
It was amazing. It was something that I'd never experienced. The crowd was peaceful, everyone was friendly. It was amazing what everyone did and what they saw.
I've even seen on social media some people are organizing.
Telling my girls what they should do with their bodies and what they shouldn't.
In the heart of the march, it was estimated that over 500,000 people participated in the nation capital.
Yesterday we got up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., which was for us 1 a.m. because we're from California. And we came and went through security at 6 a.m. and then we stood on the barricades until the parade was over at nearly 5. Shouting, holding our signs, and now today we're here and it's like so much better because it's just beautiful. It's just like a wonderful feeling to be in solidarity with all these people.
With the historic and peaceful protest, demonstrators want to know it is only the beginning and they wish all of humanity stay strong together. They marched, they sang, they danced. No looting or violence, just a peaceful protest that wanted to be heard.
We love you.
It was a beautiful day, and honestly, it was great to see.
And of course, I've seen on social media that a bunch of groups are coming together for the next demonstration. So hopefully we'll get some more news on maybe the next demonstration. We'll send you out there, Jason.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Yep.
Well, one couple who did not attend either the inauguration or a women's march was former President George H.W. Bush and former First Lady Barbara Bush.
Both were in the hospital. The former First Lady, who was given the option of being discharged Sunday, but chose to stay near her husband. The former president's vital signs are normal, and doctors hope that he can be moved out of intensive care in the next few days.
He was admitted last week for respiratory issues related to pneumonia. Mrs. Bush has been undergoing treatment for bronchitis. And after the break, Triad News reporter Deja Ross was in the middle of the Women's March in Greensboro.
And we'll have more from the demonstrations in D.C. Stay with us.
Make your emergency plan today.
Get caught buzz driving, and you could do some hard time.
Craig, knock it off.
Sorry, Mom.
It could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And that could set you back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to the Triad News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amanda Crow.
And I'm Scott Hardesty.
People came from all over the country to Washington, D.C., the very heart of the demonstration for the Women's March in Washington.
Triad News reporter Eleni Mata was at the Washington Mall, way in the middle of it all.
Let's take a look.
It's definitely a sight here, seeing everyone from all over the country and overseas come to the nation's capital for the Women's March in D.C. It was a sea of pink. Thousands of women and men flooded the streets of the nation's capital to fight for women's rights. It's the first Women's March on Washington, and activists say being part of this is a step in the right direction.
This is important, and we're going backwards, and we shouldn't be going backwards, and we are the majority. We must resist.
Resist what President Trump has promised to do during his campaign, punish women for getting abortions.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
Trump watched the protests and took to Twitter. Watched protests yesterday, but was under the impression that we had just had an election. Why didn't these people vote? Celebs hurt cause badly. Later on in the day, he said peaceful protests are a hallmark of our democracy. Even if I don't always agree, I recognize the rights of people to express their views. Even with his recognition, Cecile Richards, president of Planned Parenthood, reassured the marchers that they won't go away anytime soon.
We've been part of the American country, the fabric of America for 100 years, and my pledge today is our doors stay open.
With all the pink hats and the signs, today was all about celebrating femininity, equality, and unity. Reporting for Triad News, I'm Eleni Mata.
And again, that was Eleni Mata, so thank you, Eleni.
But there were also marches all over the planet, from Antarctica and Japan to even right here in Greensboro, North Carolina. And just down the road, thousands of people held signs in pink hats in Greensboro for the Triad Women's March. This was just one of the 5 marches in North Carolina. Triad
News reporter Daisha Ross is able to attend this march, and she's here in the studio to discuss it with us.
Hey guys.
So what was it like? How was the crowd?
It was a very peaceful crowd. It was a very peaceful march. You had spoken word poets as well as, I think there was a singer. It was a very interesting event. It was my first march, so I enjoyed it.
And that's awesome. So, and I know you're a photographer, so and you took some pictures.
Yes.
Tell me about some of your pictures. What did you take pictures of?
There were clearly pictures of the march.
Any interesting signs you saw?
Yes, there was one child who made a sign. I can't remember what it said, but cutest thing, child on top of her mom, and she's like, yeah, women's protest. Beautiful to see young children out there. This was us walking down one of the streets. This was the Woolworth Company, which is a very historic site in Greensboro, the Greensboro 4 sit-in. Here we were listening to different speeches by the Planned Parenthood. So it was a lot of different speakers, a lot of peaceful people coming, just to join in unity over a topic that we all cared about. So.
Do you think that the people that were at this march are people who are usually at marches, or do you think it was a lot of newcomers?
I think they were. They seemed to know what they were doing, a lot of the people. They were very informed.
It was organized very well.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Deja.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Amanda.
Incredible weekend. A lot of cool pictures coming out of the event.
Thank you.
And after the break, Jason Wiley will give us a look into the full weather forecast. We'll be right back.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
Welcome back to Triad News. I'm Amanda Crow.
And I'm Scott Hardesty, excuse me. We've had a great time with the warm weather around here, but let's check in with our meteorologist, Jason Wiley. Any chance the warm weather will stay around for a little while?
You know, Scott, I wish, but unfortunately it's not going to be that way. It's going to get a little chillier out here, but at least we won't see any rain. There's going to be some rain coming in from the Pacific, but it's going to be more of the southern part of the country. But if we look at the national temperatures around, back over in California, wow, look at that, 25 out there, 21, 37 in Oregon, Washington, down to Texas, we're looking at 63 and 68. Now to the East Coast, we got some, high 40s, low 50s. It's not too bad, but, who wants to go up north? It's freezing. I suggest no. But down to the regional, it's very sunny all over North Carolina. So I say get out there, play some sports while we can before we see some snow and cold weather. And now down to the 5-day forecast. I mean, today was great, wasn't it? 66, beautiful day. Hope everyone enjoyed it because it's getting back down to the 50s. Thursday, we're going to be hitting high 55. Friday and the weekends, it's going to be mid-40s down to the 20s at night. And then Monday is going to be down to 40, low of 25 at night, and then back up to 50 on Tuesday. Scott and Amanda, back to you.
Well, thank you, Jason. And coming up after the break, we'll take a look at college sports here on High Point with men's and women's basketball teams.
We'll be right back.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. Since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Hey? God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh,
Oh, you're home early?
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Triad News. I'm Amanda Crow.
And I'm Scott Hardesty. Thanks for joining us.
With 1 million people expected to attend Super Bowl 51 events in Houston, security is a massive undertaking. To keep the city, visitors, and the NRG Stadium safe, federal agents will work with state and local law enforcement along with private security. The FBI says there's no credible threat for the Super Bowl, but recent attacks in other areas have authorities on high alert. Visitors can expect the NFL's clear bag policy to be in effect, and law enforcement will be working overtime.
It'll be on definitely lockdown.
Well, winter sports are rolling right along.
And joining us now in the studio is Kevin McMahon. Kevin, we get lunch on Tuesdays. You don't lie to me then, so don't lie to me now. How are we doing in our sports department?
We're doing pretty good, Scott. Just like the peanut butter and jelly, we're keeping it nice and smooth. After a big win against Campbell last Thursday, HPU men's basketball traveled to Radford University to take on the Highlanders. Behind a huge 24-point game by Miles Bowman Jr., the Panthers pulled out the win 61-58. High Point looks to build upon their 3-game win streak as they host the Buccaneers of Charleston Southern in a Thursday night showdown in the Big South at 7 o'clock in the Mills Center. The High Point women's basketball team battled the Gardner-Webb Runnin' Bulldogs this Saturday in the Mills Center. The Panthers beat the Bulldogs 71-69 behind sophomore Emma Backrath season-high 24 points. She shot 8 of 13 and had 6 rebounds. Backrath was named HPU Player of the Week. The women's team also traveled to Bowie's Creek to take on the Campbell University Fighting Camels. Campbell won 58-33. Up next for the High Point Panthers, they host the Presbyterian College Blue Hose on Sunday at 1 o'clock in the Mills Center. The High Point University men's lacrosse team traveled to Chapel Hill this past Saturday as the team faced off against North Carolina. High Point fell short 11-10 in the matinee exhibition matchup. The Tar Heels came out of the gates ready to play as they scored the first 4 goals of the game. After 3 periods, UNC was dominating High Point with an 11-3 lead. However, a late 4th period surge by High Point created a 6-0 run for the team, which brought them within 1 goal by the final whistle. High Point travels to Baltimore, Maryland next Tuesday as they play Johns Hopkins University in another exhibition matchup. Well, Amanda and Scott, that's all the news I have for you guys this week in the world of sports. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you. The
Always great
Fighting
to hear.
Camels, that's an interesting mascot. So thanks, Kevin. Coming up after the break, imagine losing not one car, but all of your transportation in one evening.
And the circus is coming to town for the last time. We'll be right back.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Get caught buzz driving, and you could do some hard time.
Craig, knock it off.
Sorry, Mom.
It could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And that could set you back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to the Triad News. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Amanda Crow.
And I'm Scott Hardesty.
Well, Ringling Brothers Circus will be coming to Greensboro for one last time. After 146 years in the business, The beloved circus will be packing up for good due to high operating costs, low ticket sales, and criticism over the care of the animals used in the show, most notably the Asian elephants. The circus will be at the Greensboro Coliseum February 8th to the 12th, so get your tickets while you can.
Well, sounds like you want to go, Amanda?
I think I should try.
One last time.
Yeah, I've never been to the circus, so might as well. Well, that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you again for joining us tonight. I'm Scott Hardesty.
And I'm Amanda Crow.
Have a good night.